Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, thank you much. So it's always happy to back in Komodo. Yeah, particularly nice weather, so I can walk 25 minutes from downtown to here. Yeah, and I catch the time also got cold. Okay, so this is a little bit problematic. One of the interesting things is when I prepare my presentation, it doesn't seem to need to be changed, but it's after I read the program of this conference, and also I noticed there will be the critical discussion. I think I better have to rethink what I'm going to say. And luckily or unluckily, what happened this week? There's some scientific discovery or scientific accident happens whereby you got a incredible and perhaps tragic beginning of the gene design babies, twins, which happened also unluckily, and the presentation was at the University of Hong Kong, which I thought I was educated. So I know a little bit about who's who. And interestingly, I think that this gives a very interesting phenomenal backdrop or development, which can a little bit mirror image my presentation, namely when my presentation highlight the disaster from the nuclear power plant, which I frame in terms of apocalyptic learnings from the disaster. At the same time, when we talk about disaster, it seems to be something bad, but at the same time, you have got the same attachment in the super modern development of technologies. Sometimes disasters happen. On one hand, it's natural disaster, but on the same time, you've got the disaster basically is man-made or because of the human civilization, which I focus. When I prepare the paper presentation, I'm thinking about the climate change. I'm thinking what happened in the last 6 months, happening in all kinds of flooding, drought, and around different parts of the world, particularly in Japan. You've got typhoon, you've got flooding, you've got all the things you happen. It doesn't belong to the normal types of climate change. So in a way, I add on a little bit about my observation about the climate change, namely the global warming issue, onto my presentation about the learning from disaster. The disaster, I mean two things, namely the man-made disaster, either high-tech or industrial accidents, nuclear power plant on one hand, and plus a little bit about the nuclear weaponry, namely, and you can see there's a growing concern about the nuclear arms race in different parts of the world, run by Mr. Trump and Mr. Xi and then Putin. And also you got the disaster happening, namely it seems we are all heading towards another super cold war coming, namely arms race. And that will be the background or backdrop of the disasters. The disaster happened as a natural disaster, but also a man-made one. Global climate change is undoubtedly, and that is evidently shown that we have the window of opportunity will be lessened and lessened. It's talking about in a decade time we need to do something here. It doesn't seem we have the structure, we have the instrument to do it. Yeah. Either politically or even in terms of the so-called scientific understanding. Yeah, there's still debate going on between those agree they've got climate change and those who doesn't agree. And then you plus the economics and politics about the climate change or the anti-climate change. Undoubtedly, there's interesting debate about sustainability, and then may I respond a little bit to the previous presentation about the Taoism, which I think the simplicity at the same time creates diversity. It's interesting in a way, although Taoism or some understanding about the simplicity or the nothingness, but in fact the nothingness is a mirror image of a much more interestingly interplay of the diversity in terms of culture, in terms of race, in terms of we end up maybe next presentation by Professor Messer about the love. Ending up, you need a tolerance, you need understanding, and you really have ample spaces to try to capture the differences. I think one of the interesting things about the initiative having undertaken by the Japanese government, particularly the post-war Japanese government, is trying to be engaging in global events, in a very active way, particularly in terms of climate change, the Kyoto Protocol, and then the biodiversity convention on biodiversity. The last round was in Nagoya. Okay, and then you find interesting in class that the interesting learning, so-called the learning from disaster. You got the recent one is in the framework of disaster reduction, which in fact since then you got a more and more precautionary approach towards the natural disaster in terms of earthquake, tsunami. I think there's a positive development over this end. So people are responding towards disaster, either natural disaster or man-made disasters. There's a collective effort trying to capture that one. And the politics and economics of the prevention of the climate change or prevention of the disaster doesn't match, particularly in the last 5 years. You can see the global change towards a much more confrontational, not so cooperative, all kinds of multilateral agreement on doing something in cooperation mode has been boiled down into populism, into the so-called right-wing politics, either in the States or even in Europe, which can be seen from the issue about refugees, particularly refugees from the war-torn zone in Syria. And you can see the misunderstanding or the discrimination against refugees has been phenomenal, has been reshaping the whole efforts about multilateral or international cooperation for humanity, for humanity issues, refugees, and then the hunger and the sustainability issue. Okay. So I don't go into the details about the learning all the way from the last round of the Fukushima. For sure, we also have a very interesting development at the same time, not just in terms of the natural disaster, in terms of the active engagement, but from the demographic point of view, from the population dynamic point of view, you can see there's a global aging issue here. Namely, people living longer and longer, and they don't have the necessary support to deal with the advanced aging society. The senior member of our society are being left out into the caring system. We used to be supported by the family system, but the family system has been challenged by the way in which work and life are not work and family are not so well organized. So you've got the issue about how to take care of the senior adult during an economic difficult time. I don't go into the initiative NPO, NGO development after 1995 Kobe. Yes, you can see the last 20-something years, there's a huge development of NPO, people initiative, and civic active engagement, helping each other around the world, particularly the younger generation. Particularly young people, they tend to work in different dimensions if compared with those who are born in the 50s and 60s, which are retiring now. One of such interesting development, you can see the interesting part about sort of rejuvenating the social, namely rejuvenating how people interact in terms of, not just in terms of civil activism, not just in terms of volunteerism, but also in terms of the way in which the experience and the resources are shared across the time and space, which in fact not just share but also generate a very interesting phenomenal economic activity named the share economy, like Uber, Airbnb, that sort of activity. Namely, there are certain economic benefits coming out from the generosity, which is parallel to the altruistic volunteer work at the same time, with some of the activity going on in many, in fact, many of the charitable organizations and some of the welfare organizations are turning into so-called social enterprise, which means they are not just doing the social activity, but also they are earning money as well. Either enterprising the social or social enterprise, which way you go. Sometimes you can see the interesting thing about the share economy, how the people use the Uber and how the people interact with the Airbnb. You will find interestingly development is both ways. You can enterprising, making money from the social sharing, but also you can do the social good with a institution, with a economic instrument, or with a commercial instrument, or business instrument of a corporation. You'll find this interestingly, the both way work into each other turf, so to speak. And then you'll find the interesting thing which way you go. Yeah. And then all these new ideas are coming up not from the established business organization. Most of these are coming all the way from those who are 20 and 30s. We go back, you no need to go back, you use what's your social network site now. Twitter, Line, Facebook, all those are very simple ideas developed by those who are before 30s, okay, so to speak, in terms of age. So this sort of sharing experience, by sharing experience, by sharing of the information, you generate economics, you generate a business. And it's interesting in a way, you're not just rejuvenating the social, you're enterprising the social, meaning social activity becoming the basis of the business model. Whenever you use Google, whenever you use Line, whenever you use Yahoo or Facebook, you are helping them, you're helping Facebook or Line for free. Okay? In a way, we are also in some form of slave. We are slave, okay? We are slave for them in a way. I know some of my students, they have got 500 followers in Facebook. Yeah. If he got 500 followers, he or she could be a manager already, managing a company. But in fact, he's doing volunteer every day to act on the thing. And that's create interesting thing about what's going on, enterprising and social, but social will come and making money out of so-called nothingness. And they find the interesting thing going on at the same time, taking into both, namely the cultural heritage, the Wa or the Isuna. You find the interesting thing about the cultural idea about human relationship can go extend to the harmony between people and nature, which has been interestingly developed I think almost 10 years ago. If you go back to the Nagoya conference on biodiversity, there's initiative experimental projects called what they call the Seito Uchi or the Seito Yama projects, which initiate the borderline between the urban core and the natural environment. There's a middle zone there, and how you can protect that sort of Satuyama or Satouchi projects going on. And some of projects I think in Fukui or other Japanese cities areas. But interestingly, you see the cultures or the understanding of one's culture or different culture enrich the protection environment, enriching our understanding of feeling, not just understanding, but also the feeling of being part of the system. I think that's a little bit paraphrasing what the idea of Taoism. Taoism seems to be so-called nothingness and the nature and the emptiness and what the blank becoming interesting. But also there's also gone through the ideas how to interact, how to engaging into the biodiversity or sustainability discussion and development. I know some of the NGOs, even some of the active, more militant environment NGO like Greenpeace or Sea Shepherd, they are trying to exploit the basics of our blood tie, or basics of our cultural heritage, the embeddedness of who we are, then extend that part into the moral obligation of an individual people to protect the environment, to protect the living spaces we have. I will go into the introduction about the bioethics, and it will be discussed more. But at the same time, you'll find all this in a very different discussion if compared with 500 years ago. Since the Gutenberg's woodblock printing 500 years ago, along with what they call the Martin Luther King's Reformation movement, namely the printing industry. But now we have a new type of printer, new type of thing called digital communication, or mobile communication, or in the cloud. That sort of spontaneous, real-time, on-time. It fits into not just virtual reality, but also augmented reality. You watch a TV or movie now, you have got CGI, VFX. In a way, one of the interesting things is, in fact, we doesn't need to have a conference anymore, because all can be captured by YouTube and keep a live broadcast with response. And that's interactional thing which generate new types of debate, and then the issue move on faster than we expected. Namely, the idea of collective action for wrong reason or for right reason could be mobilized within a very short time frame. Some scholars, they refer to this as what you call a compressed super or hyper modernization. You press everything into within a short period of less than 1 year, the transformation goes on, and then the consensus move on. This is the reason why I put the radar and some of the antenna. So I don't go into the details about the discussion because I'm waiting for the bell or something. Yeah? So one of the interesting things is more and more of the debate are now surrounding individual responsibility towards the common goods, namely environment, climate change. But at the same time, you'll find interestingly that the parallel system going on, namely although emphasizes the sustainability, the human species, or the natural species, or the biodiversity. But at the same time, you'll find also interestingly, we also talk about, I know some of my colleagues at my university trying to do something interestingly by spending more and more money to AI, artificial intelligence, and buying big data, selling big data. Okay, they are trying to do something great, meaning they can have all the mathematical calculation and a supercomputer helping them to pinpoint what sort of thing we are going to do next. Meaning individuals as also as collective. At the same time, you find a very interesting phenomenal development. It goes into a new area, namely spending money on AI and big data and deep learning. Plus, we know already, we discussed this in the last 10 years, namely the biomedical re-engineering, gene editing or gene whatever. And then you've got all kinds of possibilities going on with the money goes into the research, and also the intellectual property right, namely the right to get the money. And you have Apple, you have to pay for the Apple right, okay, because pay for everything, okay. Windows, you fix Windows software, and then you find interesting debate going on. We are basically moving into a new area, namely everything have a price tag seems to be more interesting. If you write the human values, okay, I think it's much more easy to get money to do a computer science, AI, big data research, and asking them to give you a few $1,000s for checking the human values on something, okay? Which is interesting in a way because the system, and that's interesting for me, the systematic development may be challenging the ideas of what we have discussed so far, namely the ideas of humanitarianism, the ideas of Taoism, the ideas of something we share common goods. Because the systematic momentum or the dynamics are now moving into the area where the price set goes. Always the price set. Even for the tragic beginning of the gene editing really happening, or unluckily happening to be in a place no one thought that would happen, but in fact it's happening. Okay, yeah. You go back to all the debates. So even yesterday, I got a class in the afternoon before I came here. A student asked me, "What happened to China? What happened there? Why they are so clever to make something nobody dared to make?" Okay, it seems that they, according to the news, some of the students read the news. Okay, the gentleman, the editor, okay, gene editor, okay, editor, he said he was doing for something good, for love. When we read your paper, love, okay, that seems to be a good case, okay. You can have justification that you can make another baby because I love baby, or I cannot have baby, so I love baby. So what? This is my moral or ethical ground for doing something. But if I'm editor, in fact, everyone seems to be editor. If you check the biochemical, genetic development going on now, I think it will likely paralleling the information communication new media technology, namely the user becoming the creator. You use mobile phone, you also create image. You are also creator. You say, once you forward your email or forward something to someone, you're the creator. Not just the creator, but also you are the guarantee. Okay, your friend read your email, IG or Facebook because you, not because of the name. Okay, because I will read your email. I trust you. Okay, so you send me any email, I'll check. So you become a, okay, that's good. Nothing else.
No, it's
okay. Time's up. This is machine problem. Okay, the machine has problem. I have no problem. Okay, don't worry. Okay. So he's not machine. So one of the interesting things about, I think it's likely that the technology will be becoming. The technology could be seen, since the technology is designed to be bought, to be sold, to be used. So I don't think that the biotech will can be controlled by any authority anymore. You know, just like when you Facebook, and you can create anything you like. Okay, I think it will be similar, but it may take a little bit time, but which is a little bit different from the information technology, from the new media we have. In fact, new media, every one of you are the creator. You use it, but you also add up the most important part of the new media, not the media, the social aspect. That makes social media become important. The most important part is not the media. The most important is the social part. Namely, which is very different from the NHK, different from the broadcasting industry. The broadcasting industry, the mass media, the broadcasting, okay. But you can shut off, you can switch, you unplug, then it's gone. But one of the interesting things about the new media, particularly social new media, is everyone is a creator. Now, I think it will be the same for many types of technology. Once technology going into a much more what you call mass production or mass consumption, and you can go back all the way to what many types of medical procedure now you can bought and use easily. Just name family planning, what kind of blood pressure measuring, BMI, and you just use the scale of Tanita, you can do anything about that, but that will be the spread of the new types of discovery and revolution, which is much more fundamental, perhaps. Because social media, at the end, can have still a social control, namely, we are the creator, we can control who message we can forward to, and you can check. But the interesting thing about biotech will be much more interesting, much more permanent. The creation will be permanent. Just imagine if you're an architect, you build a building, then you can demolish the building and you can rebuild. But what happens if you make a human being? There's also the second call for ethical. You cannot kill a human being, and that's the challenge for many types of biomedical researches and advancement. Not just the gene editing. The same apply to some of the things at this stage. IPS the same. I think IPS the same. Although IPS has been getting a lot of money funded by the government because becoming a national champion, for that technology in Japan. Which is saying if you take 20 years ago, you've got a national champion for some company, okay, Siemens for the German government, for Germany, and then you've got the different so-called national champion for moving the technology up, okay. When you can see all the branding, namely Volkswagen, GM, GE, they are sort of national champion. Each country requires that sort of requirement because the country has to develop. In fact, the national champion argument coming back again in the 21st century. It was being competitive, broken down, or somewhere in the last from 1990s and then almost 20 years, but all the issues are coming back. Each government trying to be the what they call the develop own national technology strategy. If you situate that one into the case of the happening from now on in China, you will see. I don't think that the issue will be stoppable in China because the whole main what they call the orchestration of technology for Chinese technology is trying to be the Chinese will be the champion of what technology, but also champion of cultural understanding. It's happening in the Confucian Institute, set up by the Chinese government, funded by the Chinese government, extremely political oriented, extremely ideological oriented. Okay, some part of Confucian. I think the same applies. For sure, I think Taoism will be the next one. Yeah, so-called national champion for philosophical, for that sort of thing is interesting. The fundamental, you're asking the basic question about, perhaps I asked the wrong question or right question, historically in the last 100 years. This is the 100 years after the First World War end, 1918. If you take 100 or even 150 or 200 years, you will see the interesting thing about country or nation state becoming the major player in terms of all kinds of economic activities, particularly in national champion, particularly in defense industry. Yeah. All the things we have now, GPS are coming up from the DoD, from the USA. Okay, all the satellite are from avionics, that's all aviation. Yeah, we are part of it. Yes. You see, even the nuclear power plant for sure. Nuclear power energy, you can see all the history of the nuclear plant up to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and then all the things we stop, trying to stop that one, but now it moved into the nuclear plant civilian use. And then you got the problems in Fukushima 60 years later, 50, 60 years later. And that's interesting, you find the debate going on. I think it's time to be stopped and then, yeah, systematically, okay, the system. So if any question, you are more than happy to comment. I'm still changing because what happened last week is it just shocked me and I have to be prepared. Also for the HECO class about Chinese, okay, most students ask what happened to China. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Stay there, please.
Yeah.
So it's now a 10-minute, as a 10-minute period of discussion with me. And I'm going to do it in this way. I have about 15 questions for him.
Oh, 15.
And so I'm going to ask in a dialogue manner.
Yeah.
Okay? So...
yes, no, or open end.
Because, okay, I know you for almost 20 years and you never give a yes no answer.
Yes, I'll stay here.
You're still here.
But the bell is,
You're always saying a yes and no. You give a reasons. So, firstly, in Confucianism, is there an apocalyptic view or tradition in Confucianist philosophy? Because apocalyptic philosophy includes things like Judeo-Christian Islamic thinking has in the end of the world an apocalypse, end of time, a linear progression. But does Confucianism have an apocalyptic view?
One of the interesting things about Confucian and Taoism to the same extent, namely it was the ideas. I would treat it as a history of ideas, a history of something. Which were very different from the Christianity or the Jewish Christianity, because the ideas of Jesus Christ and the Savior and the idea of separation of a church and the state in some form, it end up in historical processing. You have institution. The institution have institutionalized and make sense. But for the Confucian and also to a certain for Taoism, it's a very interesting idea. Anyone can easily take it for a very simple reason, for different reasons. I don't know, but it can be generated with different diversity. Even Taoism, you can see the I Ching or you can see the Tai Chi, and then you can mention any of the national flag of Korea. Okay, 64, 2, 1, 2, 4, and then 4, 4, and 64, and then there are different combinations. Cosmology, that is more systematic institutionalized, but Confucian, and I'm not sure because he's a very smart guy, but he speaks a lot of things, but
not apocalyptic. What about Taoism? Does Taoism have a view of the apocalyptic? The apocalypse? Because flowing with nature, if I just flow with nature, then there's no apocalypse. It's just
there are cycles.
Cycles.
Cycle will be we take a reincarnation of the Buddhist one. Yeah.
Okay, so I thought was one thing.
Thank you for your answer.
Yeah. And then the apocalypse for who? Because you talked about the apocalypse of, for example, climate change. So if I'm a Siberian farmer, climate change is good for me, isn't it? Isn't climate change good if I'm a farmer in Siberia? Because it gets warmer.
It's required adaptation and mitigation. If you got a mitigation, adaptation should be fun. But in most of the case, the mitigation and the adaptation process is structurally at the disadvantage of the disadvantaged group. For the poorer country, for those who are not, strong enough in the existing social system. So for the rich guy, for the rich or for the rich and powerful one, climate change might be good, may be good.
Yeah. So yes, we have, for example, one of our participants is from Chuuk State in Micronesia, and some islands, such as the Marshall Islands, are under 1 or 2 meters above sea level. For them, it's an apocalypse. Yes, so for different people, it is an apocalypse. So sometimes we hear that every challenge is an opportunity. Sometimes people tell you probably tell students if they have bad news, it's a challenge, you have to study harder, it's a new opportunity to retake your exam. So is an apocalypse an opportunity?
Apocalypse is more like the end of all, that's the problem. Game over for all. And that's apocalypse is a game over. Plus, in Judaism we've got the Judgment Day, which is the sort of hangover. The apocalypse is end of all, that's a problem, end of all. End of all meaning that game over. I think the Third World War, everyone, I think it's predictable already. 70 something years, 73 years ago, since Hiroshima and Nagasaki, everyone knows that if the Third World War comes, everyone gone. And that you can interestingly maybe the only thing happening after the Second World War, with a grace period of 5 years after the Second World War, because all the interesting instruments coming up, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, refugees, UNHCR, and then you got the Japanese Constitution. After that, you got the Korean War, then the Game of, and then the ideas of helping the communists, the togetherness, to get away from the nuclear atomic bombs at the global scale is gone. No one concerned anymore.
So if I was, I'm a mammal, and you're a mammal.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we're mammals.
But we're killing the biggest mammal in the world. That's the
And
problem.
however, the apocalypse 65 billion years ago, million years ago, the big meteor in Mexico that wiped out the dinosaurs was an apocalypse for most reptiles, but not all reptiles,
Yeah.
but an opportunity for mammals like us to develop. So even an apocalypse of a nuclear winter, maybe it's an opportunity for some.
But the problem of the disaster at the present stage is no more the outsider. You're not talking about something outside the system. You're talking the so-called inside genocide.
Yeah.
Self-killing each other, and that's the problem. We are killing each other by high tech, by all kinds of new development. Yeah. The plastic one is for sure. Plastic particles already. The fish eat the plastic small, and then we eat the fish, and then we have got something. We have become part of the plastic system, the petrochemical industry.
Or we're part of plastic already.
Yes.
Chairs enjoyed the plastic. Another feature that was interesting in your paper, and a theme that's gone through your work in the last 20 years, is engagement, community engagement. And so disasters are an opportunity for communities to come together. We see this in every country. And also what's interesting is in the commentaries that countries make, they always say, our country, our community is so wonderful because we come together after a disaster. So every community that's affected by a disaster, you come together. But also it's used in terms of a nationalism and a local issue, saying we are special in Fukushima because we came together. We're special in Kumamoto because we came together. We're special in each disaster and so on. And actually it's not special. Human beings come together because we have to, and it's a wonderful thing. So the dualism, is it a dual nature that there is both a positive and negative, a yin and yang in each thing that we do? Could I read the dualism to develop it and say, there's actually a yin and yang in most things? And the question is, in the really bad apocalypse, let's say the Judgment Day, terminal apocalypse, let's say, maybe there's less chance for a positive. But the regular apocalypse that are localized, there is a positive and a negative. It's not that we should encourage it, and it's not that we should try not to avoid it. And then the other thing you mentioned is a risk society. So, do we want to live in a society that is very boring? Or do we want to live in an exciting society? So, for example, I lived in Bangkok for 9 years.
Before the flooding?
During flooding as well.
You say why flooding?
Chitip enjoys Thailand. So I love Thailand because it has a yin and yang. It has a chaos and order, and it has everything. Whereas some societies, such as Singapore, seem too sterile, too organized. And Japan is interesting because it's actually, from the surface, may look like it's very organized, but actually Japanese people's behavior is very interesting as well. And it actually is more like Thai in that sense. But
You refer to the giant Nissan?
Yeah.
Illinois?
Sorry, I don't know.
you refer to design the big enterprise, okay,
Oh, yeah.
French, and which is and surprise everyone, okay, all the way around the world. Still, you can have this sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, corruption is everywhere. Corruption is universal. So that's, and also everyone is trying to escape the tax man. I guess it's common human failing of most people. So some questions in for you. Would you like to reply before we open?
I think one interesting thing about, in fact, I'm not so positive, but I try to make some positive because although my work has gone through most of the interesting part about civic engagement and how does people responded to differences, and then go back to the very basics about social, meaning interaction, human being, how people interact with each other, helping each other, and that is natural type of, which I use the word more in terms of reciprocity, positive reciprocity, okay, namely interaction with something bigger than us, namely helping others, and that's the fundamentals of my bias. Although I can tell you some of the places they never learn. So the tragedies repeat, because maybe institutionally, because system is not open up, or maybe you can see some, failure of the state, a failure of the economy, failure of the society, and you can see this around the world, and this is the major sources of instability, forced migration, refugees, and that's the thing we have to do as a. I think not just we. I think the younger generation, they have more sense than us. But they don't have opportunity. That's the issue. But they have opportunity to develop something much more interestingly. Yes, some of my students working very interesting social enterprise projects. Yes, I don't see my lifetime can see how successful they are, but I think they're moving into the direction of articulating and enhancing the goodness of the human being.
Thank you. I'd like to open it to the topic, questions to the group. Who would like to develop the discussion? Questions, please? I'll pass the mic. Who would like to ask you a question?
I can ask a question. You referred to this recent case in Hong Kong. What is your prediction of, what will be the aftermath of this announcement? Do you think this person will lose the ability to work, or do you think he will do more, or do you think other people will come and do more? What do you think is going to happen?
I think the weaponry of biomedical advancement are now in the hands of the scientists. I don't think any regulatory system works. It was even interesting. If you really look at the scientific discovery in the last 100-something years, just check with Nobel Prize as an indicator. Before the Second World War, you see basically most of the scientific discovery are free for use. Okay, after that one, you add on the price tag with patent, copyright, and you match with the price to keep them not quiet, to keep them okay. You got scientific discovery, you earn the money, then you not shut up. You follow some rules. Okay, you follow some rules. You keep them at the bay. That namely, if you got the patent, you follow something. Either the patent are controlled by the pharmaceutical company, or patent controlled by something. You have a system in place, not just intellectual property right as a right, but also as a right to control the use in terms of payment, in terms of money, not just in terms of money, but also in terms of year. Copyright for books, you've got 50 or 30 years. Now you've got more Beatles, and some of the movie now is the end of the 50 years, and then everyone can use Beethoven and Mozart. Okay, but now you keep that one as a time capsule to keep them. Scientists are discovering in your place by paying the price. I'm not sure it's paying the price good or good, but now if you find this scientific discovery is now enhancing the empowerment of individual scientists, and you can see the same apply to Iran, Iraq. I think the nuclear technology is not difficult. The most difficult technology is how to fly something from one place to another, start a bomb. Okay, anyone can be terrorist now. The technology is, in a way, making the user can becoming greater. What are you? I think information technology, new media, you can see. But will other types of technology, biotech, or other types could be the follow the same line of development, namely the user or the patient becoming the doctor. Make an analogy. I think it's possible now. And you can see the development about empowerment of the patient right, empowerment of the patient to access the procedure. One, you got the pharmaceutical, you got the drugs prescription, you know what kind of side effect. The interesting part is the technological part, the scientific part is knowledge, is just cognitive. It doesn't tell you the right and wrong. And that's the fundamental issue. But historically, if you go back 500, 600 or more, 1,000 years ago, the science and knowledge were kept in the Western tradition by the church. And you got a Galileo and then you got a quarrel with the church. That was another sort of containment. But now I don't think it will stop anything. But think in China. I think it's probably not in China. The probably other part of the country which has access to this sort of technology easily. You can see the what they call the democratic profile of most of the PhD, post-PhD in the most advanced country around the world about scientific discovery. Most of the postdoc, basically you're talking all are from the country, not from USA, you're talking about other countries. And the diffusion or the spread of technology around different parts of the political regulatory frameworks. China will take this case seriously, but at the same time they take not just this case, but the scientific breakthrough seriously, and that's the problem part. When the state sectors enter into this arena, and the states have an agenda, they need to develop something on their own to be competitive. And that creates a problem. And the state is not an open society. And then you create more question mark.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for an excellent presentation.